Hello, welcome to Pineapple University. I'm Darren Kitchen.
And I'm Sebastian Kinnan.
And together, our forces joined to build epic Pineapple stuff with you guys. I'm super excited to be bringing this straight to the community. It has been a long time since the last firmware, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was 3 months.
3 months. In fact, all of these could have individually been like 3 different firmwares. So our goal today is to go over some of the major new changes in firmware 2.1.x and show you some of the cool new features.
Yeah.
Pineosauria was the last code name.
One, yeah.
This is now Pineosauria Mobilus. If you're keeping up at home with all of the different code names of the dinosaurs, the fake dinosaurs that go along with our firmware releases. And this one is like armored, man.
Yeah,
we've got some major stuff.
He's armored and he's mobile. Yeah.
Yep.
I guess that sums it up.
Pretty much. So I figured, why don't we just go plow through the changelog, because there's a lot to this, and mobile.
There is, yeah.
Mobile first, and that's why I've brought my Android phone here. This will look just as good as well at home on Safari if you happen to be using an iOS device.
Oh, absolutely.
But a lot of people like to manage their Wi-Fi Pineapple from their phones or tablets. It's a convenient way to do that. So you've done a lot of work on that front to make it more convenient.
Yeah,
walk me through some of that?
Yeah, well, we started with basically just making all the infusions responsive on any screen size. So that means the small tiles don't row up; they're all beneath each other, so you can easily scroll through them in a mobile format. We've got large tiles that actually work now in regards to.
Right, so not a whole lot of pinching and zooming as before.
No, exactly. So it's just one.
Straight into configuration, and it's just one.
Exactly. It's
like
just
there's
one
no
thing.
zooming out.
Zooming out. There is scrolling if there is something that's overflowing. Obviously.
Oh, like these tabs.
Like these tabs, exactly. So before, tabs didn't, look good on mobile because they'd overflow on the tiles and so on. So now we've got tabs that scroll with you, which makes it really easy to navigate your Pineapple on mobile. I think that's something, a direction we're heading in, and more people are wanting to configure the Pineapples just from their phone. So we figured we'd add that possibility, and yeah, I think it's been a success so far.
I think it has been, and I just love the fact that I can have just the infusions that I want available.
Oh, yeah,
because normally, when I'm running something like this on a pen test job, I don't necessarily need configuration there. I don't need to see the version. I don't need to see the logs. I pretty much need the network, PineAP. I don't really need to keep an eye on resources or the bar. And I may have like 1 or 2 other infusions, but when I'm done with that, hey.
You've basically, you're able to get rid of all the infusions like you were able to before, but this time what we added is a little arrow that pops up once you start hiding infusions, as you can see on the phone. And you'll be able to pop on, click that, and you get all your infusions in a nice, neat list, which you can then click and make them visible like you're used to. But it means that you're not cluttering your screen with having hidden infusions. It just hides them away on mobile, which I think is a very important thing, again, usability-wise.
And it's not just the ability to minimize them. It's a lot of the other little niceties, like things aren't wrapping over, like infusion view or the notification bar.
Yeah, exactly. So we kept all that to, we did our best. This is the first effort on it, so we'll see. There's still some things that we need to clean up. Recon mode is
well, recon mode's, I think, looking a lot better.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we kind of threw together, in all honesty, because it already looked quite okay on mobile, but the thing is the top bars were overflowing. We still had some issues.
If this is kind of the last minute throw together for recon mode, I'd say quite successful. If you guys aren't familiar with this feature, it is the new hotness with the new 2X series. So you have to be using this. It's so great. When you hit the drop down in the top left, you can leave the normal infusion view that you're used to, go straight into recon, and then from there you're able to actually scan for nearby access points, but not just access points, but access points along with the clients connected to them. So I'm going to go ahead and let this go for 1 minute, and we'll come back to that here after it's done its scan, and you'll see what I'm talking about, because it's really useful.
Yeah, I agree. So what else did we do? We basically, that's it for mobile, but we did security.
Huge security fixes.
We did quite a few things, from small to little. From small to little, wow. I can't
yes,
see
from
kinda.
small
from
to
small
little.
to little.
So small changes to little changes.
Yeah, no, so what we did is we decided that, even though this is a security device, we wanted to kind of, get with a community and say, hey, we can lock this thing down a bit more. So the first thing that we did was we locked down the serial console. And the reason why we did that is because not everyone, so when you deploy this on a pen test, some people will not unplug the box, which would, you know, prevent access to it, but they'll leave the box plugged in, because we have exposed serial headers, which we love because of the whole, you know, being able to hack into it, or like hack the device, basically.
Yeah.
Being able to, you know, mess with it, attach your own devices to it that talks to you. Like,
well, that's the thing, is like it's hacker friendly, which means
exactly,
choose your hacker, right?
Yeah, right. So to kind of get around that, we just require username and password to be sent over serial, the first thing.
Which is great. We've seen some people doing some pretty cool stuff using the serial, where you can actually, say, interact with, I don't know, Arduinos or other kinds of things over
Bluetooth
serial.
devices.
Yeah, now you can do the same kind of thing. You just need to first pass that password.
Yeah, exactly.
Use something like TCL expect. It should be pretty simple.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did that. Then we fixed Bash, or we updated Bash to fix
shell shock.
Shell shock thing.
The world is ending. Oh no! Hide your children. Shell shock. Of course. So don't use environment variables that way, people. It's not what it was intended.
So we weren't doing that anyway, but we did get some people, you know, obviously when it was a big thing, raise their hands and be like, "Hey, you guys are vulnerable." And sure, Bash is, but it got fixed. It's patched, so we're good with that.
Nice. Also, another huge one, preventing cross-site forgery requests is kind of huge. You know?
Absolutely.
And I love your approach to this. It's really rad the way that it just works, and we didn't have to go back and change every single infusion and whatnot.
Yeah.
But there you go.
So there's a few ways to protect against it, right? And we really only use two type of methods. So this is a bit more technical, obviously, but we use gets and posts for the web interface or any type of interaction with it. The problem is that we have plenty of people that write infusions, and we didn't want to break what infusions developed. We didn't want to break every infusion with this release by saying, hey, you now have to send a cross-site request forgery token, you know, I don't know, put a hidden input on every single form, and you know, we didn't want to do all that. So we actually inject this token for everyone in the API functions that we released and that everyone is using. And saying we overrode some jQuery functions to basically do it, but to verify that you're still the real user and not using a cross-site request forgery request.
Awesome stuff. And you know, here's the thing. This actually kind of goes back to mobile and a response to a lot of things. Just following the use cases of the community, we see a lot of people like to manage their device over Wi-Fi from their tablet, from their phone, maybe even their laptop. And so we've always had the ability to get to, say, the web interface on port 1471. However, that was by default over the open interface.
Sure, and that meant that, you know, anyone could write a quick Python script that could, you know, capture all the packets in the air, or use, I don't know, TCP dump, capture the packages in the air, and then when you log in, or even when you don't, because it's a PHP session, so capture your session, and
That's an interesting concept too, because you're talking about, say, either sniffing out of the air or even doing a man-in-the-middle attack against a man-in-the-middle tool. So all of those contingencies have been thought about now, and there's a WPA2 management interface that will allow you to manage your Wi-Fi Pineapple without having to, you know,
so at least your session is secure in terms of not going over, you know, open.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that we say, like, guys, dude, don't trust open Wi-Fi.
Because that's
irony? Anyway.
Yeah, so we did that. However, it does mean, obviously, I think we should mention that because people have raised the concern about it being on the same VLAN. So it uses the same IP pool. The hosts that are connected to the open wireless are able to connect to the hosts that are connected to the WPA2 wireless.
Same with the Ethernet. I mean, they're all part of the same pool. The reason for that, so you can port scan them and see them.
Right, so sure, you can get port scanned, but...
Right, which probably brings up, since we're talking about hacker tools and securing hacker tools, if you're using a hacker tool like Kali Linux, change your password, Tor, not the greatest password, things of that nature. So, you know, yes, you're on the same LAN as your clients. You kind of want to be. That's a good thing.
Yeah, that's the whole
It's a good thing.
Yeah,
yes. And actually, it doesn't even end there. You've got now a recipe for, I know that on the wiki, there's some ways to set up OpenSSL.
Yeah,
we're working on making that even easier.
It's
tricky because...
the reason why it's tricky is because we obviously can't ship signed certificates, or, you know, we don't have a CA that can verify every single Pineapple. We use the same IP address. it doesn't work out of the box in terms of, hey, add the certificate and you're good to go. You'd have to add the CA to your devices, and it's difficult to do on some devices. It's easier to do on others. It's browser dependent on adding just, trusting a certificate. But Chrome, for example, doesn't easily allow you to just trust a certain certificate. You have to import it. That means you have to first export the certificate, then import the certificate, then you have to, So it's a whole process, and you get that big message that for a little while you couldn't even get past by just clicking by it. So really not what we call user-friendly, which is why we didn't implement it by default, which is what we wanted to do in the beginning. Just
right, and so that's why, layered approaches, right? So we've got WPA2 for the management now, and then later, like right now, OpenSSL utils are shipped by default. There's a recipe on the wiki if you'd like to roll this, and then as we progress it, we'll make it easier and easier to go ahead and set that up as another layer. And you know what? I kind of love this just because it's cute, but one of the layers that I like on setup is the whole we start talking about man-in-the-middle attacks against man-in-the-middle machines.
Yeah, we go into all kinds of contingencies.
Right, so we're thinking of no, but what if they pineapple your pineapple? Well, they're pineappling pineapples. How would you know that your pineapple's not been pineappled by pineapples? Yeah. It gets really confusing, and especially in this office with our phones all the time, what's wrong?
We're connected to a pineapple, yeah.
It happens.
So it happens a lot. But so we talked about a lot of different ways to protect against, not logging into the wrong pineapple, having the password that you want. For example, you set up your pineapple for the first time, you have to enter a root password to set it. Now, how do you know that this is actually going to your pineapple and is private information?
Because you're connected over an Ethernet cable?
Right, but...
But if you're not...
Exactly. So a lot of people aren't, and a lot of people set their pineapples up at cons, which you should not be doing. Or just like to use Wi-Fi. We just wanted to add a little bit of an extra step. So what we do is to make sure that you are actually at your pineapple, so your pineapple knows that you're at the pineapple, so the pineapple can trust you, and that you can trust your pineapple. Basically, we added a original setup pattern in the beginning. So what happens is the Wi-Fi pineapple will blink certain LEDs, and it's going to be one of the. So they can be either blinking.
So like this one, for example, my pattern would be off, on, or just blue and green are on.
Yeah,
I don't see the
so
amber
we do
and
have
red lights.
we do have a blinking pattern. So there is a blinking. You'll recognize it as a blinking. It's not a little flash. It's proper on-off blinking, a second between every single step. Sorry, and then
So we just require that on the first login so that you know what you're connected to.
Exactly.
And it's little, but I love it.
It's a little tweak. It kind of goes in the direction of wanting to add a bit more.
From tiny to small.
From tiny to small.
From tiny to, except it's a huge update. We haven't even gotten into the help feature.
More, yeah.
In fact, we can even come back to this because if you haven't been playing with recon mode, this is not tiny. So we've done our scan here. I've only let it run for a minute, but you'll see what we get here is not just a list of the access points around in the channel that they're on and the security they're using. You're probably familiar with that from any regular Wi-Fi scanner, but also in this case, I see that there are 3 clients connected to this access point. So these are the hardware or MAC addresses that you can later use in all sorts of other attacks. And we've tried to make it super simple. Like if I click on or touch the name of the network, I can quickly add that to my PineAP list for Dogma, things of that nature. Expect more good stuff on the recon mode front.
Absolutely, integration with PineAP is I think, a big thing.
Figure I'd mention that before we move on to a help system. Finally, we get a lot of questions about, like it used to be really simple when it was just Karma and that was the only module and it's on or off, right? And it's a pretty easy one to explain, but as this game of cat and mouse and we have to get more sophisticated, more modules, more features means more questions. So we try to answer a lot of those now right in the web interface.
Yeah, so we added a help system, and maybe I'll show that off on my screen right now. Let me just log in. Okay, so you'll see the resolution makes it look a bit different than normal, but normally you don't see these questions. I don't know if you can see my mouse. I hope you can. Yeah, so for example, we have here auto SSH. We have a question mark next to auto SSH. And when we click that, we get a nice little pop-up that'll actually have some help text. Now, we do this for a lot of things. Let's take, I don't know, PineAP, for example. PineAP is a modular rogue access point suite designed, so basically we can display help directly on the interface. And if you don't want to use it because you know what you're doing or you've learned all the things, you don't want to show it, you can just go into your configuration tile and stop displaying help.
And there you go. No more question marks.
Exactly. So it's kind of a feature that we thought of would help people, learn, explore their pineapples, and then not have to worry about, or not have to come to the forums and ask for every single help, or we get a lot of duplicate requests, so we hope that kind of, dampens that down a bit.
Right. And it's right there where you're using it. So you're hovering over, like, what is this dogma thing? Well, click on the question mark. Yeah. And for Infusion developers, this is going to be easy to implement in your own thing, because the new API, there's been an update with 2.1x, and you can use it's literally help. Like, it's bracket, help, bracket.
Right, so it's super simple to integrate, and it's just done by saying or defining what Infusion you want to show the help text from, and then the key from a JSON file. So it is really, really super simple, and we hope that everyone will start implementing.
Yep, and it even looks good on mobile. I've just pulled it up here, and you get like, some of these are actually pretty long, and will go pretty in depth about all of the various little functions of these different modules. So I implore you all to click around and
explore,
learn up. Yep. Bunch of little changes. So let's fire around here. Yep. PineAP can now be controlled by the CLI.
Yeah. So again, I absolutely can. If I just show my laptop. So all you need to type in is...
Can you increase your font size, please?
Yeah, I can do that too. So Infusion PineAP, for example, and we get a list of, now obviously it's big in text, but yeah, so we can, I don't know, PineAP start. This will take a second, and it'll start PineAP on the pineapple. But basically now that means that everything is controllable that was before, controllable over the command line. So a lot of people have requested that because they wanted to start PineAP on boot, on every boot. They want to configure it by a dip switch, or they wanted to.
That's huge when it comes to these dip switch guys, because you can have my PineAP mode, my non-PineAP mode, all of those different things, just a dip switch away. It's good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And it also won't fail anymore if you use MacChanger, which is another thing that actually is built in and recommend everybody use.
While there is obviously the tool that everyone knows called MacChanger, but it doesn't always play nice with all the utilities we have. So we wrote a really simple thing that just changes your Mac that is compatible with OpenWRT.
And it also plays nice with our system because the WLAN 0 and the WLAN 0.1 and the WLAN 1 and the WLAN 2 possibly, and so it takes care of all of that, so you don't have to think about it. You can use it right from the web interface.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff. It also doesn't lag anymore on the web interface. The web interface just gets more and more zippy.
So before, when we wanted to start PineAP, it would kind of Again, it was the implementation that we pushed it, and we weren't happy with how it was, because when you started to enable it, the whole web interface would slow down until PineAP was started. And as you could see earlier, PineAP does take a good 10 seconds, 15 seconds to start. It has to set up, it has to set up the cards, it has to put them into monitor mode, it has to do this and that. So there's a few steps involved, and parse the files and so on. So now you just get a little cute. I don't know if you can see that in the corner, but it's just a little spinning starting PineAP here.
And then it's up. Yeah. Boom, pretty quick.
Yeah, so...
this next feature is going to make our very own Sarah here at the Hack Shop very excited, because she's setting up, she has kind of like slow Wi-Fi at her house. And I was like, well, grab yourself a pineapple and one of our new 800 milliwatt boosters with a 9 dBi antenna, and get yourself a nice little 4-watt system going on. Since we have the WPA2 management interface by default, really it just comes down to, hey, I want to use my Wi-Fi pineapple as an access point in the traditional sense, not the sense where you plug it directly into your laptop and you use, say, the WP5 script on Linux, or you go through the Windows internet connection sharing setup on Windows. If you don't want to connect it to a machine, you just want to plug it into an Ethernet port and say, hey, this is a switch that's connected to a router, get an IP address from here and start routing packets just like you would any other access point. We can now do that. So we can give this to Sarah and say, hey, switch from classic mode into What is it called?
We call it client mode. So
Client
it's wired
mode.
client mode versus
wired
wireless
client mode. Yes.
Which I, again, pulled up on my screen, and you'll be able to see that you can now, so classic mode is what we had before, where you can, you know, the PineApple has a static IP of 172.168.42.42, and use... .1, sorry, and it expects to get internet over the gateway .42. So you would use like the WP5 script to share internet to it. We also added something called client mode, which allows you to either use DHCP or a static IP address on your PineApple. That means you can directly connect it to your router or to technically a modem if it gives you an IP, and you know. Yeah, so this sets up all the internet sharing for you, right, and does all that. You
can also change your LAN settings. If
Absolutely.
You don't want to use 172.16.42.1, you can use whatever you would like, except for 127.0.0.1. That one's reserved. Don't use that one. You're going to break stuff. You already have it. In fact, it's called low.
Yeah. So okay, yeah. Just in case, you know, for fingerprinting or things like that, change your Macs, change your IPs.
Hey, change your Mac, change your IP. You
can also change your host name now, which is something we
there you go.
had before.
What is the host name by default? It's just PineApple.
It's just PineApple. So again, you know,
so you can make
the little things. But
just, you know, Bob's PineApple. There you go, Bob. There's also a global Infusion log. So this is something more esoteric for like Infusion developers. But there's a whole logging and reporting infrastructure in development. This is going to be awesome for people that want to take advantage of that. So you'll be able to see like, hey, what's going on? Yeah,
exactly. So it looks like this. You can from a drop-down load different logs that you want to log or that you want to load, and you know, hit load log. There's SD logs and there's temp logs. Again, it depends on the Infusion developer how they want to implement it. But if they want to have persistent logs, they put them on the SD. If they don't, so on. So it's basically just a way that everyone can log with a unified system. Everyone can view it easily.
Right, and that's all in the API, so check out the wiki for the API documentation. And also a bunch more API stuff in there, so check that out over at the wiki.wifi.pineapple.com.
I think the new API functions will all be launched with a new wiki we are going to be going with. Right.
MD Wiki is amazing. I love it, and I've switched over to Markdown. Markdown, where have you been all my life?
Yeah, so I think that's a good thing, and we'll be doing that later this week.
Good deal. Other miscellaneous fixes, we have, you know, just CSS and JavaScript files that used to be cached. If you've ever upgraded your PineApple and then you refresh the web interface and all you see is the little green bar at the top and nothing else, well, that's because you need to do a Control F5. But now you don't have to.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that a lot of people got stuck on. They didn't realize that they had to clear that cache, possibly by updating the firmware. It doesn't happen all the time, but if we do big changes, then Yep.
Aircrack NG has also been updated to version 1.2 RC1, so latest and greatest.
Yeah, and we'll be actually following along with their release timeline now. So the next time they release RC2, which is soon actually, I think very soon, which will include things like Airmon ZC, which is absolutely great, and we're going to be switching over to that too soon.
Ooh, so rather than Airmon NG.
So it's going to turn. So Airmon ZC is actually going to be taking over and going to be the default from Airmon NG the next release. So we're going to be following with that, which means for compatibility reasons we'll still ship Airmon NG because of Infusions, but we will be moving over to Airmon ZC just because it's so much cleaner being able to, you know, pull up an interface, just one monitor interface per physical interface or per interface that you plot. Yeah.
Get your promiscuous on. With that, we're also fixing a little tiny fix, but it's a cool fix about Nginx and the temp logs. And anyway,
the version we have
no longer temp logs filling up your PineApple, which is something that you would notice after like weeks, but you know.
Well, it depends. So when I was developing or messing with it, I had it deployed for just a night, and I had an error. And say an Infusion is causing an error or causing a script to not load properly, that temp log fills up quickly because you've got the 3-second refresh and so on. So yeah, I'm glad we figured this out and we found it. It's a silly thing to miss, but it's also the fact that just turning or sending your logs to off does not work.
Okay, and that pretty much sums it up for 2.1.x. We have a lot of awesome features on the board. Of course, your feedback really is a huge driver in the way that we go. If you want to scratch an itch, it's not already done. I implore you all to check out the documentation on the wiki for the Infusion development and the API. It's easier than ever to build yourself. It's almost like Bob the Builder could make one. It's that easy.
Speaking of Bob the Builder, that's an Infusion now.
That's what I'm going for. Also, we've got a lot on our plate coming up in the next releases, so stay tuned for more stuff about the MITM proxy kind of stuff.
Yeah, we've got that. Then more PineAP features in regards to deauthentication and
yeah, built-in deauthentication is going to be huge. More PineAP modules as we build out this suite for things, passive things, a lot of intelligence gathering, and that's going to tie into the reporting that we alluded to, where we're going to be able to, like, you know, make those logs a little prettier, something you can show your boss.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've got some. Now let's talk about that when we've got it.
When we've got it, but it's all looking really good, and it's because of you guys, so thank you so much for supporting us and allowing us to build awesome Wi-Fi Pineapple goodies for you guys, and to build a community and an ecosystem where you can develop freely and make cool stuff. And it just warms my heart to see that we're up to like 35 infusions now, and CLI stuff, and it gets better and better every day.
It really does.
So if you haven't already, check out wiki.wifipineapple.com. forums.hack5.org, you'll find the Wi-Fi Pineapple section. That's where you can get involved in the community. You can leave comments right here. Let us know what you like to see more of.
If you've got suggestions for the firmware, go to our bug tracker on Wi-Fi, or suggestions/bug tracker on wifipineapple.com, because that's where we kind of gather all of that. And,
yeah, that's huge. That makes it a lot easier.
It helps us coordinate, so if we get YouTube comments and forum comments and IRC comments, it's a bit all over.
We get a little squirrel wheel, and then squirrel wheel?
I don't know.
There's a wheel that little squirrels go on for your pet squirrels.
Yeah.
You guys do that in Germany, right?
Yeah, of course. That's how we power our entire country. You know, renewable energy.
Squirrels are renewable.
Yeah.
There you go. So you learn something every day. Until next time, I'm Taryn Kitchen.
And I'm Sebastian Kinna.
And he's going to get on the squirrel wheel. Cheers.